Hi everyone, Professor Sweeter here. Today I am broadcasting live from the beautiful exotic location of Goodwin University. Yes, I'm actually on campus in my office. It's amazing. There's no one else here, so it's a little trippy too. What I'd like to do though is talk to you a little bit about the upcoming final project. We are nearing the end of the semester and the end of the course. And so it's time to start talking about the final and get you squared away so that you're on the right path and you can put together an awesome, awesome final project. Let's talk about the differences between this final and the midterm. First of all, the midterm was a speech. It was a presentation. You had to present on camera. The final is a little bit more traditional in the sense that this time you are writing a paper. And so what I'm going to show you today is the basic guidelines for creating the final, but I'm also going to be going over the different options. And that's where there's a difference with this particular assignment, the fact that you have so many options to choose from. So what I'm going to do is give you my screen and let's take a look at what's going on in Blackboard right now. So you are looking at Blackboard. I, of course, clicked on course projects. You can see that the midterm is no longer there. Now it simply says final project. And I do invite you to open this up and take a look at this as soon as possible. Granted, the dates that you are working with are going to be a little bit different class by class. So please make sure always that you check the calendar right here where you see my cursor, because I have gone ahead and programmed every single due date for the entire semester there. And you can look at them visually so you can see all the different steps to this final project there as well. When I click inside, here we go. Pretty self-explanatory. This is the entire final project folder. Nothing is hidden from you at this point, so you're going to be able to start from the top and work your way down, just like the rest of the folders I've built for you. This first link is the project description, and below it is the project rubrics. Let's take a look at the description. Whoops, that's the rubric. There we go. Now, I don't want you to be overwhelmed by this particular project. It looks humongous. If you print it out, you're going to notice that the document is 9 pages long. It's not because it's such a big project, but because there are options, okay? There's one basic format for the project, but you're going to have 7 different choices to choose from, and that's where this is a humongous document. All right, so let's go over the basic objective. We've talked about a lot of different things this semester, a lot of different concepts, and this project is designed to give you the opportunity to investigate some of them a little bit more deeply. So I really encourage you to go back through the textbook, through your notes, through the PowerPoints, and think about what was something that was really interesting to you, what was something that you really, really enjoyed talking about, and think about how you can turn that into your project. All right. I've given you some examples here, and as you look carefully, you're going to see that they pretty much align with the different chapters of the textbook. Just like the other project, we are looking at it in different steps. I've given you 4 different steps here. The first one is to select a project, and that's what the most of this video is going to focus on, is selecting your project. After that is conducting research, which is mostly individual. Step 3 is group conferences. And depending on whether you are on ground or online, that'll look a little bit different. Quite honestly, where we are still in the middle of the COVID pandemic, I'm going to really push for more online conferences. And that's something that I'll be showing you in the coming weeks. And then step 4 is the essay. And that is essentially what your project, your final product is going to be. Most of you are going to be creating a project, and then you'll be writing an essay where it's 3 to 5 pages explaining your research and your findings. Okay, so this first page here is important to you because it gives you that general overview of what you can expect with this project. What I'm going to do now is scroll down a little bit further, and let's look at the different steps to the project. Now, I want to highlight something. Right now, you're looking at project number 1. There are 7 of these, okay? 7 different projects. You are responsible for choosing one of them. So I'm giving you all 7 right now, just so you understand it. You've got a good idea of what works, what doesn't work, what might be interesting to you, but please don't panic. You're only responsible for picking one of these 7. All right, let's go. Project number 1 is verbal and nonverbal communication. And quite simply, as you investigate communication with this project, that's what you'll be doing. You'll be looking at verbal and nonverbal communication. This project, I'm going to be a little bit honest with you guys, a little bit challenging to do right now in the time of COVID because it requires you to interact with other people. And if you are quarantining or if you are trying to social distance, you might find it challenging to do some of these activities. Here's what you're going to do. First of all, you're going to conduct research by completing some experiments. The first experiment asks you to break nonverbal rules. You'd pick 5 of them, and then you'd go out in public and you'd do them. So it could be something like putting toilet paper on the bottom of your shoe, having food in your teeth, speaking way too loudly in a public place, any matter of nonverbal rules that you would normally follow. And I really caution you with this one in particular because an obvious one might be going without a mask in public or getting too close to people. And while those are legitimate for research, I don't want to put you or anyone else at risk either. So I really discourage you from doing either of those nonverbal rules. The next part is to talk to 5 people without using nonverbal communication. So you're only relying on verbal communication in that case. No expressions, no gestures, no voice modulation, nothing of the sort. You just talk to someone very straight and narrow, and it could be something, you know, really exciting, but you're keeping it close. So with this project, you're going to be trying these different experiments, your 5 nonverbal rules, and then talking to 5 people without nonverbal. And then your job, your paper is to go back and reflect on what happened. All right, what happens when you break these rules of communication? How did people react to you when you either broke the nonverbals or you didn't use nonverbals? And so your paper for this particular project is going to be answering these next few questions, A through D, and then discussing what you found when you conducted these experiments. All right, so that's project number 1, verbal and nonverbal communication. Let's look at project number 2, improving interpersonal communication. This one is actually a really good one to do right now in COVID. I think you'll find that this is easily accomplished with little risk to yourself or other people. Essentially, this takes the idea of those journal entries we've been doing all semester and asks you to look a little bit more deeply into them. All right, what is something that you as an individual don't do well in terms of communication? Maybe you're not so good at eye contact. Maybe you mumble too much. Maybe you speak too loudly. But what is an interpersonal communication skill? And I've given you some very physical ones there. Could also be just how you resolve conflict. But what is an interpersonal communication skill that you feel you need to get better at? All right. So with this project, what you're going to do is first tell me why you need to improve this skill. All right. Why are you not good at conflict? Why are you passive aggressive? Why are you, I don't know, why do you mumble too much? Whatever you chose, right? And talk about what problems you have with it. The next part is to come up with a method for fixing this. So say, for example, you need to make better eye contact with people. So you make it a point to make eye contact with 10 people in a work shift, something like that. So you come up with a method to change that behavior and to work on that behavior. And in that, you also include a monitoring device. You come up with a way to measure whether or not you've been successful with that behavior. You're going to do that behavior for a week. So a full week of working on being less passive aggressive, on being, more outspoken, on being better at resolving conflict. And then as you do that, you're going to analyze what happened and you're going to reflect on what you learned and how you may have improved your your communication skills. All right, so that's your paper then. Talking about what you need to improve, talk about how you improved it, talk about your experience improving it, and then talking about how you did after a week of really focused effort on it. Okay, again, really good one to do with COVID. Project number 3. This one makes me itch a little bit. Receiving feedback. In this particular project, you are asking 5 people to give you feedback on yourself. What do they really think of you? And I've given you here 11 different questions. You deserve to be proud of something. I wish you would tell me more about. I wish you would talk less about, and so forth. So you give this survey, and you can add extra questions if you want, but you give this survey to 5 people. They fill it out, they respond to it, and then you analyze the results. Okay, so that's the survey right there. And then part 2 is essentially what your paper is going to be. It says summarize the results of how each of the 5 people answered. And then there's some sub questions there. How did you feel? How do perceptions vary? What do you want to change? What did you learn about yourself, and so forth? Again, this is a really, really good one to do during COVID, because you can simply email people these questions, or you can, talk to them on the phone or Skype and have them answer it that way. So you've got a lot of different ways to conduct these surveys. My one big recommendation to you with this one is to approach the responses thematically. Please do not say, my brother Joe said this and this and this and this and this, and then, my sister Sam said this, and go on like that. Don't break it up person by person by person. Instead, approach it thematically. For example, maybe 3 out of 5 people said that you are an exceptionally loyal friend. Great, talk about that. I was pleased to learn in these surveys that a lot of my friends think I'm very, very loyal. And here are some of the comments that support that analysis. So approach your responses, approach your paper in this case, thematically. All right. Okay. Project number 4, giving feedback. So if project number 3 is where you ask for feedback, project number 4, you are giving feedback. This is a fun one. And it's a good way of looking at conflicts too, and also relationships in terms of family, romance, and professional. What I would suggest in this case is to pick 5 people. Try to pick 5 people who have something in common, and give them feedback. What do you think about them? Are they great employees? Are they good friends? Are they people who do something that hurt your feelings on a regular basis? So you're going to pick 5 people, and you're going to tell me what you would like to tell them. Then you're going to decide if you want to actually share that information with them. You don't have to tell anyone anything you don't want to. It's just the experience. And you'll write about either why you chose not to share that feedback with someone, which could be a investigation into your relationship and implicit and explicit relationship rules. Or you can talk about what happened when you did share that information with that person, and how you or that person, dealt with a conflict that came of it. Okay, so giving feedback. Again, you're picking 5 people, you're writing how you would want to give them feedback, you're discussing why you would or would not give them that feedback, and then tying it to the textbook as much as possible. All right. All right, couple more, home stretch. Active listening. This is the project description that is the longest. It doesn't mean that it's the longest project, it just has the longest description here. Active listening, in this case, you are choosing 4 different types of conversations. You're looking for pleasure, information, evaluate, and supportive conversations. And you're going to be listening to each one of them. All right, so it says here, pick a listening situation where you are listening for pleasure. Describe the situation, identify the barriers or obstacles to listening in the situation, list a listening goal. What do you want to do? How did your listening differ? And then evaluate your listening. And so this is where the length of this particular project description comes in, but you're doing the same thing for a pleasurable conversation, an evaluative conversation, an informative conversation, and a supportive conversation. All right. And so in each of those cases, you'll describe the conversation, and you'll talk about what made maybe your listening different in each of them. Okay. All right. And there's the bottom of 5. So your paper, again, talking about listening versus hearing, obstacles, barriers, and how your strategies might change, from conversation to conversation. And what's neat about that one too, I want to go back for a second. What's neat about that one too is you don't have to listen simply to conversations. Say, for example, you want to find someone who does some maybe evaluative listening. You could listen to a documentary, you could listen to a debate, you could listen to a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be, you know, you sat down in a conversation with someone and you listen to them evaluate something. All right, project number 6. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. This is one that's also a little bit tough to do during COVID. Project number 6 is called Stop Doing That, Listen to Me. And this is also one that has to do with listening behaviors. And in particular, we're looking at good and bad listening behaviors. So what are those active and passive hindrances to listening versus hearing? This one is different though, because instead of actually writing a 3 to 5 page paper, this project actually has you creating a video. All right. You're going to demonstrate good and bad listening behaviors by developing skits and then acting out the skits. So this one's a little bit different. You're still doing writing in the sense that you're writing scripts for the skits. But again, your final product is not going to be a paper, but a video of about 10 minutes long. I will say, if you are not someone who's already really good at video editing and you like producing videos and you have a skill for it, this is not a project where you want to teach yourself how to do that, because I worry that you'll focus too much on the video editing and less on the listening and the hearing behaviors. All right, so consider that very carefully. It's also one where it might be helpful to have a friend to help, to act in it, and that might not be possible. You might be putting yourself at risk. All right. Again, a great project, but in terms of COVID, a little bit, difficult. All right, the last one here. Whew, I'm on the last page. Look at that, page 8 of 9. So here's page 9 of 9 in project number 7. Project number 7 is about Hollywood and how Hollywood creates culture, gender, or ethnicity. And in particular, doesn't say it very well in this description, how does Hollywood communicate different ideas to us? What does Hollywood say about gender? What does Hollywood say about masculinity and femininity? What does Hollywood say about the right way to behave, or the right way to run a business, or the right way to be in a relationship with someone else? A lot of different mixed messages if you think very carefully about it. This particular project asks you to choose either a movie or a television show that you like very much and analyze it. All right. So this one, first of all, you're picking the movie and TV show. You're going to briefly describe the plot of the movie or TV show. I'm going to warn you, one paragraph, maybe that's it, no more than that, telling me about the show. And then you're going to analyze the show. And it says apply at least 3 of the following terms. I think this list here is a little bit narrow. So if you have something else that you think is really important and relevant to that TV show, feel free to bring it in. A good example might be the Handmaid's Tale, which is pretty popular right now. And you don't see it on this list, but that show has a lot to do with degrees of authority, who's in charge, who's subordinate, and also a lot to do with misogyny. And neither of those actually appear on the list I've given you here. So please feel free to pick a show and, whatever concepts you think really are communicated throughout that show. So again, then your paper will summarize the plot of the show, and then it will summarize the 3 different concepts and how the TV show or movie reflects them. All right. This particular project, honestly, is really good if you have a limited amount of time. If you know that you don't have the time to go out and do some of the other experiments, or you don't have the time to wait for someone to give you feedback, this might be another, good limited amount of time project. All right. So there you go. You have 7 different choices. Please, please, please pick one. just one. Depending on where you are in class, whether you're doing a 7.5-week class or 15-week class, your due dates are going to be a little bit different. So please, as I said before, go back to Blackboard and check that calendar and see what those due dates are. The first thing you're responsible for is telling me which of the 7 projects you're going to be completing. And it's really short. It's basically a quick check into Blackboard and say, I'm doing project number 7 or I'm doing project number 4. That's it. Pretty simple. The second part is the research part. Please remember the research part is going to be different project to project, and that's something that you will be conducting on your own. The third step is the group discussion. And like I said earlier, I'll produce another video later on explaining to you how to do those discussion boards. It's typically open in the last 2 weeks of class, but I do like to open a little bit early to give people a head start. And then finally, step 4 is the paper or the final project itself. I will say this, just like with the midterm, you have the option of doing a rough draft for the paper. And in Blackboard, it does say optional rough draft. I really, 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 really encourage you to do the optional rough draft. What I find is you end up with a better paper in the long run. You have a better understanding of what I'm looking for in the long run. And in some instances, if you do really well on that rough draft, what I'll do is I'll ask you if you want to apply that to your final and just be done with it. So something to think about too. So I do encourage you to do that optional rough draft. And then of course, your final draft is due in the last few days of the class. Let me show you one more thing before I forget. That is going to be the rubric for this class or for this assignment. Here's the rubric right there. And you're going to see this again if you do a rough draft, because I will send this back to you with my comments. All right. It's kind of a generic rubric because again, you've got 7 different project choices, but you can see pretty easily what I'm looking for. Research is always pretty easy. Everyone does a pretty good job in that. Big things that I really look for where people tend to lose points, just to give you that heads up, are these ones, connections to theory. I am specifically looking for you to connect your ideas and your project back to the textbook. I should be able to see a clear line. We're talking about this and it brings us back to conflict. We're talking about this and it brings us back to the 5 principles of interpersonal communications. So I'm really looking for that connection to theory. I'm also looking for analysis and conclusions. Don't just tell me what you did. Don't just tell me about the movie you watched. Don't just tell me about the research that you conducted. Tell me what you make of it. Analyze it, break it down, explain it to us. All right, we do a lot of that in class, so kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And below that, a lot of that, the remaining stuff has to do with sense of self. What did you learn in this process? Mechanics, writing style, and of course, references and citation. All right, my friends. So there you go. That is your final project. I hope this video has been helpful to you and hopefully has answered some questions. Don't forget that you can reach out to me and meet with me to brainstorm or talk about ideas or ask more questions if you need to. I am always available. All right, good luck. I am looking forward to some really awesome final projects. They're always a lot of fun. And I will see you all soon.